Alright, so for all of you that wondering where is the review for the Sunday game that happened in match week number 26, the answer it is now time to do so. And I do apologize the fact that this review is a little bit late because, yesterday I did had to go to a dental appointment and I was numb, and as expected, I wasn't being able to speak very well after when I finished that dental appointment. So yeah, you definitely want to hear a normal me rather than a drunken kind of me when I do the review in terms of the Sunday game. Now that being said, in terms of these 5 Sunday games, I mentioned before there were definitely some games that have playoff implication and teams that desperately needed 3 points in terms of keeping up with their playoff hope or just end a bit of a losing skid that they're going through. And while some teams were able to do so, there are also teams that aren't able to. But one team that was able to do that is NYCFC, who, it's been a 3-game losing skid coming into this game against the Chicago Fire, and that ever since Tati Castellanos was loaned off to Girona, it's been pretty bad for this team, both on the attack and also on the defense. But they got a much-needed 2-0 win in this game against the Chicago Fire, which, by the way, first of all, this game was actually played at SeatGeek Stadium in Bridgeville, which is, the old home for the Chicago Fire. And this won't be the last time that the Fire will be playing at their old stadium, SeatGeek Stadium. And that I think there's also a couple of games that they have to be forced to play in that stadium because the Chicago Fire is, or not the Fire, but the Chicago Bears is going to be playing at Soldier Field, and it create a bit of a conflict in terms of schedule between Fires and Bears game. I mean, either way, hopefully the Fire, I know there's been talks of the fact that they might be the sole tenure of Soldier Field because, the Bears seems like they're going to be leaving. But I really hope the Fire eventually find a way to maybe get themselves a soccer-specific stadium, because while Soldier Field, I know it's kind of their historic home, but I would have loved to see the Fire to have a soccer-specific stadium, and I can understand why they decided to ditch SeatGeek Stadium, which was built to be a soccer-specific stadium so they can move out of the cavernous Soldier Field. But the problem with that is it's in Bridgeville, and you can definitely see that in this game there's a reason why they decided to move out of SeatGeek Stadium in Bridgeville, because the attendance in this game was pretty similar to the one that when the Fire was occupying that stadium, where it was pretty empty for most part in the stands. Though that being said, despite the spirit crowd, they did see the team go on the front foot early in this one, and there were a lot of possession that the Fire, of course, was having, but it was a very slow game to start off. In fact, overall, this was definitely not one of the most entertaining game to watch if you're a neutral, as the opening 15 minutes, there was only one shot throughout that. But we do see a goal not long after I wrote that, because in the 16th minute, on the first shot of the game for NYCFC, Pereira would score from Rodriguez and Amundsen to give NYCFC a 1-0 lead. That's, as I mentioned, is the first shot for NYCFC, and it was a banger. Pereira basically hits that one with an amazing strike to basically puts that into the top right. Slovenia had absolutely no chance in terms of saving that. And yeah, just like that, NYCFC were able to make it 1-0, though Shabilko tried to tie it, but instead he hits it wide, and actually paid the price to do so, because he, I think, bang into he had a clash of heads with one of the NYCFC player, and you can definitely see there was a lot of blood that he, of course, when he was on the ground. Though, that being said, in the 30th minute, Slovenia did deny Magno from close range, and despite still having most of the possession, I thought the Fire looked really poor in the final third. They look out of ideas whenever they get to the final third. And not to mention, at the back, it was very leaky too. Though Navarro had a big opportunity, though he took a swing and a miss after being wide open from 10 yards out. So that's got to be rough when you're that open and you don't make any contact toward the ball. Slovenia then denied Pereira again from long range, and I thought the closing out was not good for the Fire. Like, they were allowing NYCFC in terms of shooting from outside the 18-yard box, and while I get that you want to maybe allow that space so that your opposition might take a low percentage shot, if you don't do some closing down, even when teams that take low percentage shot, it will goes into the back net, and we already saw it early in this game with Pereira getting an absolute banger of a goal. And yeah, that kind of was the difference as we head into halftime, with NYCFC leading 1-0. Though in the second half, the worst possible scenario for the Chicago Fire, who they also desperately needed a win because they want to get themselves back on track, but they would concede literally straight from the kickoff, as Rodriguez would score to make it 2-0 in favor of NYCFC, though this was a bit of a controversial goal because it definitely looked like Santi Rodriguez fouled Schieholz, as Schieholz did give the ball away in a very bad position, but on the replay it looked like maybe Rodriguez kind of commits a foul there on Rodriguez, and it's not like something similar to what we saw in the Saturday action. Remember when the Loons played against Austin and how Cascante got pickpocketed by Fragapane? This was very similar, but only different is it feels like Santi Rodriguez looked like he fouled Schieholz in order to pickpocket Schieholz there at the back. But nevertheless, the goal was stand, and that gives NYCFC a 2-0 lead. It was almost 3-0 if it wasn't for Martins denying by the post on the header. Duran then hits one into the side netting, and the game kind of become tight and disjointed, which I thought that favored NYCFC, because anytime when you're a road team and you are cruising and also not allowing a lot of opportunity to make the game very disjointed and boring, it's a good thing. And in the 85th minute, Schieholz did puts it high from the corner before in the first minute of stoppage time. It's the Fire turn to be victimized by the post, and John Duran becomes the latest victim of it as he struck the post on the header, and despite the Fire try their best to get themselves one back to set up a grandstand finish, they were held scoreless in this one, as NYCFC, like I said, they walk away with a much needed win in this one. 2-0 the final score. Shots in this one, 10 shots for the 8 that NYCFC had, no shots on goal for the Fire compared to the 5 that NYCFC had, 7 shots off target for the 2 that NYCFC had, 1 shot that was blocked for the 3 that the Fire has, and possession-wise, 58% possession compared to the 42% possession that NYCFC has in this game. And overall for the Fire, this looked like a performance from the days when they were struggling in May and June earlier this season, where they just looked lack of ideas whenever they go on the attack. And also not to mention the fact that the Fire has now all of a sudden slipped all the way back down to 13th position, and it's safe to say that there's a reason why Fire fans have maybe said that, well, yes, the team had a great run and they're above the playoffs, but when is that the time when things are start to fall apart and the bottom, of course, would drop? It seems like it's happening again, and it sucks that it happens again, because again, for the Fire, I get it. Like, I get the frustration. As a Quakes fan, this is exactly the reason why Fire fans have never been optimistic about their team, because as soon as that team gives them some hope that maybe they can do something good, then they bottom out, and it seems like they're doing right now. And even though they're only 5 points back of the playoff line, if they continue this bad run, they would be out of the playoffs and join DC United and see you next season mode. Though that being said, moving on, in the next one is Columbus versus Atlanta United, which this was a game where for about 60 minutes or so, it was all Atlanta United. Like, this was a game where Atlanta just kind of dominated against Columbus, and then the Crew kind of scored 2 goals and really turned this game on its heads and really started to make this game look like an MLS After Dark kind of game, which makes sense because by the time this game was in the second half, it was dark because of a lengthy weather delay that we saw in this one. And that, overall, I don't think either of these teams will be happy coming out of this game with a 2-2 draw. Though, that being said, in the first half, and one thing I forgot to mention is that we did had an hour and a half of weather delay, which pushed this game, the kickoff, to be at 6:48 p.m. local time, and that created a problem because knowing the fact that Fox they planted that they were going to have a double header between this one and then the very next game, which is Sporting KC versus the Portland Timbers. They did not really think about what happened if one of those games had a weather delay, and it turns out this game had a weather delay, and I'll talk about a little bit later what they decided to do in that SKC versus the Timbers game. And spoiler alert, it was not very good. But in the first half, Araujo did put it wide as the flag, of course, went up. So even if Araujo scored, it wouldn't have counted. Though Sosa did head it high from the corner, and it was a promising start for Atlanta, who, again, they feel like coming into this game, it was a must-win for them. Like, they were hanging on to their fringe playoff hope, and that they desperately need to get 3 points against the Columbus Crew. And it seems like that's kind of the case. At least in the early start, as they really pressed for the opening goal. Room denied Gutman from close range before Peralta headed straight to Room. And I also thought that the Crew was having a tough time defending corners. Like, every time when Atlanta decided to deliver the ball into the box from a corner spot, there were many times where I've seen some Atlanta players in the box completely unmarked, and that is criminal defending if you are trying to defend a set pieces. Though Etienne did have a chance in the 15th minute as he flicked it just high on a redirection shot. And I thought Atlanta's got to be careful because we've seen this before in one of their road games. In fact, I think this was the last road game where they looked dominant coming out of the game, and they were playing against FC Cincinnati, and they got that 1-0 lead, and then all of a sudden the game, of course, would turn on them. In fact, this game was literally a carbon copy of the FC Cincinnati versus Atlanta United game, as I we'll talk about in terms of the goal scoring, because in the 19th minute, after all that dominant that they had to get the opening goal, they do get the opening goal. It's Sosa scoring from Wiley and Lennon to give Atlanta a 1-0 lead. That's the first goal for Santiago Sosa in MLS, and I couldn't believe that actually was the case, because I swear he has at least scored an MLS goal before. I mean, I know injuries has been a huge problem during his time with Atlanta United, but I was kind of shocked the fact that was actually his first career MLS goal. I mean, because I know for sure that's not his first Atlanta United goal, because he has scored plenty during when he came into Atlanta and during the time that they were still in the CONCACAF Champions League. Though that being said, in the 23rd minute, it was almost 2-0 in favor of Atlanta, as Maria almost scored an own goal, but he was fortunate that the post basically saved him from embarrassment there. But there was no doubt that Atlanta smelled blood. Like, they would continue to push for a second goal, and that, again, this looks very similar to the Cincinnati game, where as soon as they got that one goal, they were not just going to back down and just hold on. They were looking for that second one. There was a shout for a penalty for Columbus that was not given before Sosa tried to score a second, but he curls a free kick just wide. Cisneros then puts it wide from close range before it looked like it was 2-0 when Sosa scored for the second time this game, but the goal was disallowed because there was a foul in the box. But like I said, Columbus was having a lot of problem whenever dealing with balls that was coming into the box, but they were very fortunate that they were only down 1-0 heading into the second half. Now in the second half, Sejdic puts a knuckler shot that was denied by Rome. That was actually a good save from Eloy Rome, because the rain was pouring down in the second half, and when you have those knuckler kind of shot, like, it's already difficult to try to handle in dry condition if you're a goalkeeper, but in wet condition like that, heads up play there from Eloy Rome, able to push that one away, despite the fact that he has to deal with the wet turf and the wet ball. But like I said, Atlanta was continuing to pushing for that elusive second goal as the rain was pouring down. There was a shout for a penalty for Atlanta that they feel should have been given after Mensah handball in the box. I think that was the right call to not give the handball, because I don't think Mensah, like, if anything, maybe Mensah kind of hit his shoulder, and that it's kind of between the lower right side between his how do you say, almost near his stomach and hand like that. And when that happens, I don't think that is worthy of a yellow card. Especially also his hand was kind of tucked in, and that, you know, anytime when the ball hits a hand that is tucked in and also hits part of the hips, I don't think that is worthy to be called a handball. Though that being said, in the 66th minute, Columbus equalized. It's Cucho Hernandez scoring from Diaz and Molino to make it 1-1 in this game. Great to see Kevin Molino get on the assist chart. I mean, that's a guy that I haven't heard from a very long time, and it's not a big surprise that that's the case, because as it is the case in Kevin Molino's career, he's been suffering so many injury setbacks, but he looks like he's finally healthy and able to get on the assist chart here. And then that goal looked like it was going to be, or that tie looked like it was going to be short-lived, because in the 67th minute, Rome would rob Cisneros in the back post, who had a free header. And I'll tell you what, Eloy Rome was having one of his best games this season. Like, he was single-handedly keeping this crew team for most part of this game, and now keeping this team to not concede on the other end. But I also thought the game was opening up, and this is also when the game really went crazy, and it has that MLS After Dark kind of energy in it. Cucho decided to go on his bike, but goes right to Rios Novos. And what's interesting is he actually mishits this one first, and then he decided to go on a bicycle kick. I don't think I've ever seen a player decide to go for a bicycle kick goal after he hits that one. If that one went in, that would have been probably one of the most incredible goal I've seen of a player going on his bike and scoring, because again, it doesn't come from an assist. It feels like it's kind of come from its own mishit, and then goes on the bike and went on to score, but unfortunately it wasn't in this case, as that one goes right to Rios Novos. Then there was a chaos in the Crew box as Araujo got the final touch of that, but he palms, or his shot was palms away by Room. And again, both defense seem like they have taken shelter from the ring, because there was no defense that was play ever since the equalizer was scored. And it shouldn't be a big surprise that the second goal would come, or the next goal would come very quickly too, because in the 72nd minute, Cucho Hernandez, I mean, I don't even need to say much more of how important he is for the Columbus Crew, because he scored again here from Sands to give the Crew a 2-1 lead. And yes, that's Will Sands, James Sands' brother, making a rare appearance for the Crew in this one, coming off the bench and making an instant impact. But in the 74th minute, again, that lead looked like it was short-lived, because Atlanta looked like they were able to score right away after they concede, as Mosquera would put it into the back of net. The only problem is he was in an offside position, and the goal, of course, was disallowed, though Atlanta would get the equalizer not long after, as Peralta would score from Mosquera to tie the game up at 2 apiece. And remember how I said that the Crew was doing having a lot of problem in terms of defending corners and defending those balls coming into the box? Yeah, they were finally punished in that. I mean, Peralta had a free header, no one was marking him there, and the Crew was being punished because of that, and the game was all tied up at 2 apiece. And then Cucho tried to go for a heady in the 85th minute, but he goes straight to Rios Novos. And despite the fact that both teams tried to get that elusive third goal in this game, it did end in a 2-2 draw out of this game. And look at the shots in this one. 24 shots compared to the 12 that Columbus had. 10 shots on goal compared to 8 that the Crew has in this game. It's safe to say that even though I know 4 goals was conceded there, both goalkeepers was definitely on their game in this one, because a combined of 18 shots on goal, that is kind of insane. The fact that I know the scoreline 2-2, which is a high scoring game, but it could have been a lot more high scoring if both goalkeepers were on their game. 7 shots off target for the 2 that Columbus had. 7 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that Columbus had. And possession wise, Atlanta had the better possession, 51% possession compared to 49% possession the Crew has in this game. But either way, like I said, this is not a resort that either of these side would want to do, because for the Crew, we talked about the problem of their home form and just drawing way too many games. This is another example of it, and I will say that maybe they'll be happy, at least for the most part. They were dominated by Atlanta and they were able to get a point out of this one. But again, anytime when you drop points at home, it obviously hurt, and especially with the way they had the lead at one point, it looked like momentum was going to be on their side, and then it snatched right away from them in a span of just 4 minutes. Yeah, that's going to really hurt. But for Atlanta United, again, as much as they dominated in this game, the problem of not scoring that second goal basically came back to haunt them, and it's kind of been the case we've seen in the past couple weeks. There's a reason why I've always talked about the narrative of, if you're the road team or if you're the home team, you don't score that killer second goal to kill the game off, it's going to come back to haunt you. And that, yeah, for Atlanta, they just kept Columbus in this game way too long, and they almost paid the price. Well, they kind of paid the price when Columbus scored two on them in quick succession. But that being said, I am now going to switch board and look at the last 3 games that happened in terms of the Sunday action. So moving on, in the next match, we got Charlotte versus Orlando, and it's safe to say that maybe Orlando has started to turn their season around a little bit, because it feels like after when they went on that very bad run in July, and that it pretty much was so bad that it got them below the red line, that it was a huge wake-up call for this team, because ever since that, they've been able to get back-to-back road wins, including getting a 2-1 win against a Charlotte FC side that they maybe have some momentum after that big road win against NYCFC. Now, early on, Galese almost committed a howler there. I mean, this cross was coming into the box, and I don't know, did he kind of read that one wrong, but he basically had a very awkward swipe at that one and just kind of palmed it away at the very last second. Like, if that one actually went in, that would have been an embarrassing moment for Pedro Galese. But then in the 6th minute, Vargas did close it just wide, as I thought Charlotte no doubt started the brighter side. And this is not a big surprise, because that's been the story of the season for Orlando. They always tend to not start the better side on the road, and they always tend to go on a road bunker shape, as it is the case. Like, I always have the phrase road heave mode, and that of course from Adrian Heath just decided to just go very defensive. Maybe he should create a row Pereira mode too, because it's feeling like Oscar Pereira feels like this season, especially when Orlando is playing on the road, they always tend to go on this defensive shape to maybe nick a goal on the counter. Though that being said, that defensive shape didn't last long because they kind of started to get into this game a little bit as the half goes along. Torres did hit one straight to Kalina before Galese denied Vargas again, this time from long range. Then Antonio Carlos hits one just high from the corner before there was another dangerous cross coming in, this time for Orlando, but Kalina was able to palm this one away. But there was no doubt that Orlando were the better side as we head into the end of the first half. They were pressing to try to get the opener before halftime. Kyle Smith did have a long range effort that that one that goes into the stands, and we head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. Now in the second half, Shradetsky did hit one into the side netting before Bronico hits one straight to Galese, and I thought Charlotte once again started the second half the better side. It feels like Bunker Ball was back with Orlando City, but little did we know that, Orlando always tends to kind of find ways to nick a goal somewhere like that on the road, and it happened again in the 62nd minute, because really against the run of play, Ajan Kara was able to score from Torres and Urso to give Orlando a 1-0 lead, and I thought that was going to be serious trouble for Charlotte FC, because we've seen before this season Orlando has been very good in terms of protecting the lead on the road for the most part. But little did we know that lead would be short-lived, because 5 minutes later Mackenzie gains, and I think this might be his first goal for Charlotte FC. I don't remember he actually have scored a goal for this team, but he scored here from Josviak to tie the game up at 1 apiece. It was a world-class ball there from Josviak, but also a better finish from Mackenzie Gaines, which has been a problem for him ever since he has moved to Charlotte FC. Though on the other end, Orlando almost got the lead back, but Kalina with a full stretch save to deny Pereira from a 27-yard free kick. I mean, it was a well-struck free kick, but even a better save from Christian Kalina to deny Maurizio Pereira a chance for Orlando to retake the lead. And really, as the time winds down, it looked like Charlotte was continuing to try to get that second goal, but in the 89th minute, what did I tell you about Orlando somehow able to find a way to kind of get a scrappy goal, or maybe just kind of get a goal out of nowhere on the road, even if they're not playing at their best? It happened again, as Teshiro Akindele would score here in the 89th minute to retake the lead for Orlando City, but that was a bad mistake from Jalen Lindsay. Like, he basically whiffs on a clearance in the midfield, and that allowed Orlando City to go off to the races, and Akindele buries that one, and Orlando was leading 2-1 in this one. Though Charlotte almost equalized in the 6-minute stoppage time as Bronico just puts one high from close range. But yeah, in the end, a big victory for Orlando City in this one. As the shots in this one, 13 shots per the 9 that Charlotte had, 7 shots on goal per the 3 that Charlotte has, 4 shots off target per the 3 that Orlando has, 2 shots that was blocked per the 3 that Orlando has, and possession-wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession that Orlando City has in this game. And yeah, it's safe to say that, for Orlando City, they have definitely woke up ever since they find themselves below the red line, and that if they can continue maybe winning these games. And again, my biggest question about this team is that, can this be consistent? Can they finally find a consistent form that's been lacking pretty much throughout this whole season? Because if they can do so, maybe they can make some ground in the Eastern Conference. Like, they have now got themselves back up to 5th place, but like I said, the East is just so tightly congested in terms of the playoff line that if they want to make the playoffs this season and continue to stay above the red line, they need to, of course, find that consistency. But for Charlotte FC, what a huge letdown this game is. And this is kind of a game that maybe is the reason why their playoff hope maybe is slipping away, because we know this team is not a good team on the road, despite they get their second row win against NYCFC and against an Orlando City side. And while Orlando has done very well this season on the road, so is Charlotte FC at home. And those home points is what really kept this team in this playoff race. And to not only drop points at home, but not even get a single point at home and get a loss at home, that is definitely going to take a big blow in terms of Charlotte's chances to make it to the playoffs, and especially with the way that they still have a very tough schedule to end the season. But that being said, moving on, in terms of the next match, it's Sporting KC versus the Portland Timbers. And unlike how, in that 6-0 thrashing that DC basically took once again on the hands of the Philadelphia Union, and you think that maybe DC was going to get revenge against Philly after that 7-0 result, and DC basically didn't. That was not the same case for Sporting KC, because for Sporting KC, yeah, they definitely did not forget about the 7-2 beatdown that they had in the hands of the Portland Timbers. So in this game, they decided to have some payback, and that while this was not as crazy as the 7-2 result, and I think Timbers fans will kind of maybe say that the only silver line is at least they're still leading the aggregate score in terms of those two meeting. Yeah, this was ugly, especially in the first half for the Portland Timbers, where Sporting KC no doubt have played not only the best games they have this season, but a game that just basically shows you why Sporting KC, even though they might be in CU next season mode, this is a team that will be a headache for a lot of playoff team, or at least for a lot of team that needs free points to keep their playoff hope or get above the red line, because Sporting KC know how to play spoiler, and they're definitely playing spoiler very well with the way that they're getting big wins against teams that is fighting for playoff position. Now, in the first half, remember that Columbus versus Atlanta game and how it, of course, kicked off late because of lightning delay, and it was going to be interesting how Fox was going to balance how they were supposed to schedule a doubleheader, but now knowing the Columbus and Atlanta game is not going to finish in time before the Sporting KC versus Timbers game, what is Fox is going to do? Well, if Fox was actually maybe competent, they might think about putting this game on Big Fox, or maybe decide to delay the kickoff to probably around 7:30 local time in terms of it. But this is Fox, and again, one of the things about national televised game in MLS this season, and really for the past couple of seasons, it's been poor. Like, the product has been really poor, and I haven't mentioned a lot about the ratings of these national televised game, and the reason why I haven't mentioned it is because you probably know what the rating is. It's very poor, and it's getting to a level where I'm kind of glad that Apple TV is taking over MLS broadcasting rights starting next season, because at least we're not going to have this kind of problem next year with the fact that this game was actually on the Fox Sports app, and that has to piss a lot of Sporting KC and Timbers fans off, because for both of these team, even though they're not having a good season, this is a big game, especially for the Portland Timbers, and the fact that they can't even watch their team play because one other game just kind of overlapped. Yeah, that is just really bad, and especially also with the way that this game eventually did switch to FS2, and Fox didn't really kind of tell people that they were going to switch that. It kind of confused a lot of people out of it. But like I said, I'm just so glad that Apple TV is coming to the league next season, because again, depending on still with the national televised game, at least Apple TV does still control all the rights in that. Even if there is going to be games that are on national television like Fox or ESPN, at least we know the fact that if we had the situation like this, you can still just watch it on Apple TV, because they basically control all the rights, and that most of the Fox and ESPN game, if we're going to get those next year as national televised game, will come exclusively from Apple TV and their broadcasting team. But that being said, since I don't have the Fox Sports app, that means I have to do a knockoff off stream to watch this while this game or the game between Columbus and Atlanta was happening. And I did had a tough time finding a knockoff stream, but eventually I was able to do so. And then I thought early on, I thought as expected, Sporting KC was on the front foot while the Timbers was dropping back and looked to try to go on the counter. Very Portland Timbers kind of style, where they love to just drop back on the low block and trying to hit teams on their counter attack as their bread and butter. Though this season, at least for the most part on the road, it has not worked, and it did not work in this game either. Voltaire did head it high in the back post before Zusi sliced one just wide from long range. Agata then puts a weak shot right to Ivicic as the possession was 61-39 in favor of Sporting KC. Though the first big chance did came for the Timbers, as Williamson almost scored against the run of play as he puts it just wide from close range. But then in the 31st minute, William Agata would score, as he scored here from Zusi and Espinoza to give Sporting KC a well-deserved 1-0 lead. And it's safe to say that William Agata not only has been a huge signing for Sporting KC, but imagine if they had this kind of player in the beginning of the season. They probably would not be where they are right now if they had Agata leading the line instead of Kyrie Shelton every single game, and that it's safe to say that also next season it's going to be an interesting decision for Peter Vermes of once Polito is back in the starting 11, do we decide to go with Polito or Agata in the starting 11, or is he going to try to go with a two-striker system, which is something that I don't think Peter Vermes usually use, but William Agata is just red hot right now. 5 goals in the last 5 games ever since he become a Sporting KC player. But I also want to mention the fact that the Fox Sports app that was kind of temporary broadcasting this game, it cut to commercial while this goal, of course, was scored. And it's not a big surprise that everybody, when they find out that the scoreline was 1-0, they were pissed. Like, they were pissed. The fact that they basically missed a goal because the Fox Sports app just have to have in-game commercial. And it wasn't like one of those in-game commercial where basically half of the action was still happening and they just cut the app. They went into full commercial mode. Like, the game literally disappeared. And again, this is another example of why I'm so glad we have Apple TV next year, and that I know I have a lot of hope of Apple TV, and that there could be a sense that maybe they could be a letdown at times, because it's still an unpredictable of how they're going to produce these MLS games, especially maybe these national televised one. But surely it has to be better than what Fox and ESPN is producing, and that moment was just a classic example of the fact that why a lot of people hate the Fox production and also the ESPN production of these MLS games, and also why you see a lot of low ratings in these games, because who is going to watch a production by a big network team when it is pretty clear that both of these big network couldn't be asked in terms of producing a good television production in terms of these national televised games. Though, that being said, moving away from that, after Sporting KC getting a 1-0 lead, it would be 2-0 as Fontas would score to make it 2-0 in favor of Sporting KC. Not long after, it would be 3-0 in favor of Sporting KC, as the floodgates was definitely open. And it's Eric Tommy, another guy that has been a huge signing for the Sporting KC side. He scored here from another guy that has been a big signing, a guy that continued to have a monster impact for this Sporting KC team. And I mentioned before, William Agata getting on the score sheet to make it 3-0 in this one. And while it was a great goal from Eric Tommy, it was 0 defending for the Timbers, and that was kind of the case throughout this first half, with the defense were basically completely AWOL and did not show up in the first half. And there was no doubt that I can't resist to write that this was a payback for 7-2. Sporting KC is not going to stop at 3. That they want to maybe score 7 in this game and really want to give the Timbers fans a little taste of their own medicine after, of course, blowing out Sporting KC early this season. Though we do head to halftime with Sporting KC leading 3-0, and in the second half, it seemed like whatever Gio Savarese said to that Timbers team, which he definitely have some choice words after that poor performance in the first half, it kind of worked for a bit, as Postgame somehow was able to come off his lines. He actually was off the line and was able to cut out what looked like, I think it was a sprayer that was going through on goal there, and he was able to cut that one out, but that one went right into the hands of Sebastian Blanco, who was trying to chip it over him, but somehow he was able to come back onto his lines and tip that one over. Then Asprilla hits one straight to post game in the 48th minute, and it feels like the Timbers finally woke up in this game and looked to get one back into this one, though that kind of hope quickly diminished, because in the 52nd minute, Shari did puts it over from long range before Ivasic had to deny Russell, and then Agata actually had a second crack of it, but he puts that one over the bar. Then Tommy hits one over the bar for Sporting KC, and Sporting KC was rising up again. Like, this is a team that they were in a no mercy kind of mode. They want to really put the pedal to the metal and really want to trying to send a message to the Portland Timbers that they are not going to be they're definitely still pissed off about the 7-2 loss that they had earlier this season, because in the 79th minute they would make it 4-0, as guess who? William Agata gets on the score sheet from Ben Sweat and Voltaire to make it 4-0 in favor of SKC. Tuiluma then blasts one over the bar. Up to this point, I kind of stopped watching this game, because while this game was happening, this game was also kind of overlapping between Nashville versus FC Dallas, so I kind of start focusing on this game a little bit. But yeah, I kind of stopped writing some of the notes. There were definitely some I'm pretty sure there was something that was happening, and that one of the things that did happen is in the first minute of stoppage time when the Portland Timbers were able to get one back as Sebastian Blanco would score from Asprilla to make it 4-1. Originally, this goal was disallowed because of offside, but they overturned that one, and yeah, in the clean sheet of course was gone for post game, which probably maybe is one of the only disappointing thing for Sporting KC in this one, because yeah, it's safe to say that they got revenge in this one by winning 4-1 against the Timbers. Shots in this one, 18 shots for the 13 that the Timbers had, 5 shots on goal for the 9 that Sporting KC had, 8 shots off target for the 6 that Portland has, 2 shots that was blocked for the 1 that Sporting KC had, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that the Portland Timbers has in this game. And I think the only good news coming out of this game for the Portland Timbers after an embarrassing loss that they had yet again on the road is that the Cascadia Derby is the next game. And we talk about how the Cascadia Derby, whoever wins that one, that will really kind of change the season, and that the Timbers were hoping that they're going to be the one that's going to come out the winning side, because I think if this team is going to make a playoff push, which they're still in the playoffs, but the way that they've been playing right now, especially on the road, they don't look like a team that should belong in the playoffs. And if they do make it to the playoffs, it look like this could be a team that could be one and done. But that game against the Sounders, again, if they can win that Cascadia Derby, we've seen how they got that big Cascadia Derby win against the Sounders earlier this season. It can really propel their season and get their playoff push underway. But yeah, that game, of course, I really think is kind of the season for the Portland Timbers, because if they do not win that one, then they could be really in a dire stage where things could start to fall apart, and that they might actually miss the playoffs this season, which would be a huge disappointment after what happened last year. Though it won't be the first time, because remember when the Timbers made it to MLS Cup, all the way back in 2015 when they won it. The very next year, they of course missed the playoffs, and it seems like they may be on verge of doing it again this season after making to MLS Cup and maybe missing it the very following year. But that being said, moving on in terms of the next match is Nashville versus FC Dallas, and it's safe to say that Nashville not only got a much-needed win in this game at home, because like I said, home form has been a huge issue for Nashville this season, and that is really the reason why it's holding them back in terms of not only being a playoff team, but simply just trying to get into the playoff race and just stay above the red line. But in this game, they got a much-needed win, and not only a much-needed win, but probably the best performance that they've ever played this season in their short time at Geodis Park, because not only they win against FC Dallas and get a massive 3 points, they straight up dominate FC Dallas in a way where this looked like it was very similar to the DC versus Philly game, where it looked like it could have been 5, 6, or even 7-0 in this one. Now, in the first half, Nashville gets the goal-scoring party going early, as in the 5th minute, guess who? Hani Mukhtar scoring from Sapon and Moore to give Nashville a 1-0 lead, and of course this one was from the tightest of angle, but that's what Hani Mukhtar can do for Nashville. Like, again, he is single-handedly carried this Nashville team on the attack, and I think one of the big difference in this one of why Nashville ends up to be getting a dominant victory is that it wasn't just Hani Mukhtar in this one in terms of the goal scoring. Though there were times where it could have been Hani Mukhtar, because he had a lot of chances, and I was kind of maybe a little bit surprised that he didn't get a hat trick in this one with some of the big chances that he also had in this game. Though in the 9th minute there was chaos in the Dallas box, but Nashville weren't able to capitalize, and there was no doubt Nashville were off to a better start. And again, this is the desperation. We start seeing some team that desperately needed 3 points, especially when they're playing at home, to do so, and that Nashville was definitely showing that desperation, and that they were pushing men forward, and was just overwhelming FC Dallas throughout the first 10 minutes or so. There was a shout for a penalty for Nashville that was not given before Jacob Schaffelberg did blast one from long range. Schaffelberg finally made his debut in this one, and it's safe to say that he definitely had a dream debut, because he would actually get on the score sheet in the 26th minute from Mukhtar to make it 2-0 in favor of Nashville, though this is probably one that Paz would like to have back, because Schaffelberg didn't really hit this one that hardly. It kind of hits right to Martin Paz, and as well as Martin Paz has been this season, yeah, this was not one of his brighter moments. One that he just did not push that one away and basically push it into his own net. And yeah, just like that, Nashville were up 2-0. I immediately wrote this looked like it was the best that Nashville has looked at home all season long, because they were just single-handedly dominating FC Dallas. And little do we know, it gets better for them because Hani Mukhtar would get on the score sheet. Because of course Hani Mukhtar gets on the score sheet for Nashville, as he scored here to make it 3-0 on a great free kick goal that he scored, and that would be the scoreline heading into the second half. And again, I was kind of paying a lot of attention to this game and started paying less attention to this one because it was a blowout. Though that being said, I probably didn't have to, because this one was kind of a blowout. Well, this one was near the end of what could have been a blowout too. And in the second half, pretty much same story. Pass would deny Mule from close range before Sapon trying to stab one into the center, but just could not get out of reach. And again, it was all Nashville again. Like, they were pressing for the fourth goal. Mukhtar, which struck the post from point blank range, as I thought for a second that was his hat trick. And you can also see that Dallas, they looked like they didn't want to be there. They looked absolute gas in this game, and I don't blame them, consider, again, this is the third game in 7 days for them. But you just also sense that, they suffer the same problem that Charlotte has. After a big victory in the middle of the week, you wonder, is there going to be a huge letdown? And yeah, it's safe to say that Dallas had a huge letdown and then some against Nashville SC. Because in the 70th minute, Poss would deny Mukhtar again as he was going to try to score his hat trick after he went through on goal. And then in the 72nd minute, it would be 4-0 in favor of Nashville, as Dave Romney would score from Lovitz to make it 4-0. That, of course, came off of a set piece, which is what Nashville loved to do, and that's kind of pretty much Nashville SC in a nutshell ever since they came into the league. Paul's then denied Leao, but Nashville did get a second crack of it, which Mukhtar puts that one wide, and then Godoy just heads it wide in the 83rd minute. And I even wrote, this felt like it was Union versus DC. I mean, it was target practice that Nashville was putting against Martin Pass and that Dallas back line. And that, again, even though Martin Pass did commit a bit of a mistake earlier in this game, like what I said about Romo and the review between DC and Philly, I feel bad for him, because yeah, he was just completely hung out to dry of a non-existent back line that Dallas had in this one. And it's not a big surprise that they would take a thumping 4-0 loss in the hands of Nashville SC. And the stats basically tells the story. 18 shots compared to just 4 that FC Dallas had in the entire game. No shots on goal compared to the 8 that Nashville has. 1 shot off target for the 6 that Nashville has. 4 shots that was blocked for the 3 that Dallas had. And possession-wise, 56% possession compared to the 44% possession that Nashville has in this game. And I think this does give Nashville themselves back above the red line. And that, yeah, again, this was a much-needed victory that they need at home. And hopefully this is maybe the beginning of something good at home, because, like I said, I feel like if Nashville is going to make the playoffs this season and maybe even get themselves higher up in the table, they need to take care of their business at home. And we'll see whether that, of course, will continue. But for FC Dallas, I mean, again, it's always tough to try to play 3 games in 7 days, especially your third game in 7 days is on the road. And I just feel like maybe they just look out of gas, especially after that hard-fought victory against the Union. And again, when you get a big victory like that, it can go both ways, where it can either give you momentum or it could set up a huge letdown where you're basically just so exhausted after a hard-fought victory, and the next game you just don't have it. And it feels like that's kind of the case for FC Dallas in this one. And all they need to do now is just kind of move on from this and try to bounce back, because they got some big games coming up. Like they got RSL not long after, and then they of course play Minnesota. Those are 2 teams that are just below them in the standings in 4th and 5th position. But that being said, that is pretty much it for my review for the Sunday game. Like I said, I do apologize for the fact that this review was a little bit late. But if you do enjoy this review, let me know in the comments below. And also, make sure you leave a like and smash the subscribe button. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I, of course, will see you guys next time.